I was pig drunk. Too drunk to have been thinking about muffling the gunshots. If I'd done it, I just would have let them rip.
He went up to the turnout and parked there. He drank beer and smoked cigarettes. He watched the lights downstairs in Quentin's place go out. He watched a single light go on upstairs, and 15 minutes later he watched that one go out. He said he couldn't guess the rest.
Mr. Dufresne, did you then go up to Glen Quentin's house and kill the two of them? His lawyer thundered.
No, I did not, Andy answered, but by midnight he said he was sobering up. He was also feeling the first signs of a bad hangover. He decided to go home and sleep it off, and think about the whole thing in more of an adult fashion the next day. At that time I drove home, I was beginning to think that the wisest course would be to simply let her go to Reno and get her divorce. Thank you, Mr. Dufresne. The DA popped up.
You divorced her in the quickest way you could think of, didn't you? You divorced her with a .38 revolver wrapped in dish towels, didn't you? No, sir, I did not, Andy said calmly. And then you shot her lover? No, sir. You mean you shot Quentin first? I mean I didn't shoot either one of them. I drank 2 quarts of beer and smoked however many cigarettes the police found at the turnout. Then I drove home and went to bed. You told the jury that between August 24th and September 10th you were feeling suicidal. Yes, sir. Suicidal enough to buy a revolver? Yes. Would it bother you overmuch, Mr. Dufresne, if I told you that you do not seem to me to be the suicidal type? No, Andy said, but you don't impress me as being terribly sensitive, and I doubt very much that, if I were feeling suicidal, I would take my problem to you. There was a slight tense jitter in the courtroom at this, but it won him no points with the jury.
Did you take your .38 with you on that night of September 10th? No, as I've already testified. Oh, yes. The DA smiled sarcastically. You threw it into the river, didn't you? The Royal River on the afternoon of September 9th. Yes, sir. One day before the murders. Yes, sir. That's convenient, isn't it? It's neither convenient nor inconvenient, only the truth. I believe you heard Lieutenant Minster testimony. Minster had been charged of all of the party which had dragged the stretch of the Royal near Pond Road Bridge, from which Andy had testified had thrown the gun. The police had not found it. Yes, sir, you know I heard it. Then you heard him tell the court that they found no gun, although they dragged for 3 days. That was rather convenient too, wasn't it? Convenience aside, it's a fact that they didn't find the gun, Andy responded calmly. But I should like to point out to both of you and the jury that the Pond Road Bridges is very close to where the Royal River empties into the Bay of Yarmouth. The current is strong. The gun may have been carried out into the bay itself. And so no comparison can be made between the riflings on the bullets taken from the blood-stained corpses of your wife and Mr. Glen Quentin. And the riflings on the barrel of your gun. That's correct, isn't it, Mr. Dufresne? Yes. That's also rather convenient, isn't it? That, according to the papers, Andy displayed one of the few slight emotional reactions to it he allowed himself during the entire 6-week period of his trial. A slight bitter smile crossed his face. Since I am innocent of this crime, sir, and since I am telling you the truth about throwing my gun into the river the day before the crime took place, then it seems to me decidedly inconvenient that the gun was never found.
The DA hammered at him for 2 days. He reread the handy pick clerk's testimony about the dish towels to Andy. Andy repeated that he could not recall buying them, but he admitted he also couldn't remember not buying them.
Was it true that Andy and Linda Dufresne had taken out the joint insurance policy in early 1947? Yes, that was true, and if it acquitted, wasn't it true that Andy stood and gained $50,000 in benefits? True, and it wasn't it true that he had gone up to Glenn Quinton's house with the murder in his heart, and wasn't it also true that he had indeed committed murder twice over? No, it was not true. Then, what did he think had happened, since there had been no signs of a robbery? I have no way of knowing that, sir, Andy said quietly.
The case went to the jury at 1 p.m. on a snowy Wednesday afternoon. The 12 jurymen and women came back in at 3:30. The bailiff said they would have been back earlier, but they had held off in order to enjoy a nice chicken dinner from Bentley's restaurant at the county's expense. They found him guilty, and brother, if Maine had the death penalty, he would have done the air dance before that spring's crocus pointed their heads out of the snow.
The DA had asked him what he thought had happened, and Andy slipped the question, but he did have an idea, and I got it out of him late one evening in 1955. It had taken those 7 years for us to progress from nodding acquaintances to fairly close friends, but I had never felt really close to Andy until 1960s or so, and I believe I was the only one who ever did really get really close to him. Both before long-timers, but we were in the same cell block from the beginning to end, although I was halfway down the corridor from him.
What do I think? He left, but there was no humor in the sound. I think there was a lot of bad luck floating around that night, more than could ever get together in the same short span of time again. I think it must have been some stranger just passing through. Maybe someone who had a flat tire on the road after I went home, maybe a burglar, maybe a psychopath. He killed them, that's all, and I'm here.